Hello, wonderful people. I'm Logan Cruz.
And I'm Izzy Colón.
And today we are going to talk about some current events in the LGBT community.
Yeehaw! Let's get started.
Okay, so the first thing that we are going to talk about is on September 6th, homosexuality was decriminalized in India. So congrats to India while we're at it. Shout out to India. Good job. So just a little history lesson. The law banning homosexual behavior, so to speak, was actually a British law that was enacted when India was a colony of Great Britain during the 19th century. So this was a really cool thing for India to kind of put in the past because it wasn't really their law to begin with. So this is a really awesome thing for India. And they still, gay marriage is still not legal there, but this is definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah, and then I wanted to just talk about sort of like the cultural standards and the effects that this might have on them. So pretty much I feel like it's probably not like the hugest cultural shift now that like homosexuality is decriminalized, because it was probably at least to some capacity accepted within certain communities in their society. I think that the more significant part of it is that it's actually now starting to be recognized in their laws, which then could translate to like different marriage laws or other laws, protecting like LGBT rights, which I think is super cool and could then go on to shift and affect more cultural standards in the future.
I agree. And making homosexuality not a crime is really helpful to kind of break the stigma against homosexuality in general, but especially gay sex, because this law was more geared towards when being gay was kind of like a fetishized thing and a really taboo thing as well. And so it kind of made it a sex issue rather than, it's a love issue. And so this kind of helps break that down a little bit and makes it more acceptable for someone to just be in a homosexual relationship. It doesn't always have to do with like sex all the time. And so that's a really cool thing there too. The next thing we want to talk about is, this isn't super recent, but recent enough that it is worth mentioning. Christine Hallquist is the first transgender governor candidate from a major party, and that is in the state of Vermont. And this obviously is a great thing for representation in the government. A few years ago, there was kind of a nationwide spotlight on North Carolina because of a bathroom bill that was proposed. And the bathroom bill basically said that you had to use the restroom of the gender you were assigned at birth, meaning trans men had to use the women's restroom and trans women had to use the men's restroom. So obviously it sparked a lot of controversy, and with Christine Hallquist being in the public eye in politics, she's a transgender woman, it makes us wonder kind of how that discussion would have been different about the bathroom bill if there were trans politicians involved. And because there weren't. And Izzy, I think, can more speak to that.
So I was just kind of wanting to talk about how, just in general, diversity and having different people in charge of making different decisions that all have different experiences in life, whether that's someone being LGBT, specifically being trans, having different races represented and all of that, it can only be good to make a decision that can benefit everyone, not just the people in power, which can sometimes be limited, and that is pretty universal. That's a lot of different people like aren't represented a lot in positions of power. So for that reason, I think it's a really great thing.
Mm-hmm. And also, just in general, politics aside, we've had some transgender people be in the media in recent years, such as Caitlyn Jenner, and other people. But Christine Halquist, I mean, she's a politician. That's a very like professional arena, and that really can help break the stereotype of trans women, especially with the bathroom bill. A lot of the reasoning behind it was because people were worried that quote-unquote trans women were really cross-dressing men trying to get in women's restrooms as predators. But, that's not usually the case. Christine Halquist is a real woman. She's not a cross-dressing man. And having kind of a professional face for the trans community can really help people who are just kind of ignorant to what transgender people, what that even means. So having that professional face is really important to kind of get past that kind of lapse in judgment, I would say.
Right, yeah. And I think that another thing that's worth addressing is that, so obviously this happened in Vermont, which is a super liberal state, but it still is a big step because it sort of opens up the doors for other more liberal states to kind of follow, and hopefully that'll have a ripple effect and we'll see more transgender people in those kind of positions of power. Yeah, and then eventually that can just kind of trickle down into other states. So the next thing we're going to be talking about is New York City is allowing X as a gender option on birth certificates for non-binary people. So people that don't identify as male or female don't have to put that on their birth certificate, so they can go in and change it.
Yeah, and this is a really interesting thing that New York City is starting. I think it'd be cool if this spread and would also be an option for not just non-binary people, but it would be good for trans people because a lot of states and countries you still have to have a quote-unquote complete medical transition or physical transition before you can change your gender marker, and that's just not realistic for some people, and not everyone has a complete physical transition, whatever that means. So having X be an option would be a really nice kind of like fallback plan, I guess, so that applying to college and employment isn't as, one, dysphoria-inducing, and two, doesn't create any confusion when you show up looking like a man, but your birth certificate says female. So, the X, I think that would be cool if that kind of spread.
Yeah, okay, and so the next thing we're going to be talking about is recently a lot of celebrities have been coming out as bisexual, which is really cool because it kind of like, I guess, downplays the stigma around being bi, which is like super prevalent. So like a lot of people have celebrities that they can identify with that are like gay icons, like Hailey Kiyoko, lesbian Jesus. We love her. But not a lot of bi icons are super prevalent. I feel like that people would know. And like celebrities like Rita Ora are coming out that already have such a huge platform and they already have a young fan base, which it's super cool to kind of see that starting more now. Yeah.
I think this is also a really cool thing because a lot of the media view of LGBT people are, primarily white gay men. And that's okay. In some respect, at least some part of the community is being covered, but we need to kind of move past that. And because I think it's causing people to think that there's like one way to be LGBT. And so because in recent years it's been like Neil Patrick Harris and Ellen DeGeneres and now Adam Rippon after the Olympics. Like there's a kind of just like one type of LGBT person being covered a lot of the time, but that's not all that there is. And so more celebrities that we already know and love coming out as bisexual kind of opens up, okay, there's more than one identity in this community here. And it's just really cool to open up some more representation. Word of the day.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's really cool also that these are people that like a lot of people know about. And so even if they don't like immediately recognize that they're bi, like eventually like all these people coming out, like word spreads, and it's just interesting because that kind of keyword representation hasn't always been a thing. So
Yeah, and I think Also, I mean, some of these celebrities, Jason Mraz is one of them that has come out recently, and I don't know a single person who doesn't know the words to the song "I'm Yours" by him from like the 2000s. So such like an iconic song. That's a different podcast though. But people already know him, and so a lot of people I feel like think that you can just get famous by claiming that you're like gay or bi or trans or something, and that it's like an attention-seeking thing. But like this person was already out and everyone already loved him, and this is just another part of him that is important to recognize.
Right, and that's real people. Like, that's how it is. Like, it's two separate things, and it's so cool to see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, so these are all the current events we have for you today. If you have any ideas for more LGBT podcasts or topics that you want covered, please let us know. Drop a comment.
All right, thanks for listening. See you next time.
Bye.